All right, and now let's connect to our MongoDB Atlas account. And before we continue, let me just mention that in between the videos, I switched back to port 5000. So remember, while we're testing, I set it up as port 4000. So I switched back to port 5000. And also, I removed the error from the home route. So if you don't want to get some weird bugs when you visit the home route, I also suggest removing that as well. And before we continue, let me just stress something. In my opinion, this is somewhat of an advanced course. So my expectation is already that you do have existing MongoDB Atlas account with proper database access setup, with proper network access setup, and you know how to already get the connection string. Now, we'll get it together, but the idea is that I'm not going to set up the account from scratch. If you're not familiar with those things, please, like I keep mentioning, go back to my Node Express project video, since I cover all of those steps in great detail there, and I don't want to waste everyone's time and do them one more time. And in order to get running, we'll need a Mongoose installed because we'll use the connect method. And in order to do that, we need to grab the command here and then stop the server. You already know the drill. So let's stop the server. Let's clear everything. And then we're going to go with npm install mongoose. And as a side note, I'm actually going to switch to this one because I like actually how this one looks better. So this one is useful if you want to get the commands, but I actually prefer this setup as well. Don't ask me why, just a weird preference. And then we want to create a DB folder. Now, I guess let's start up the application first. And then that is going to be in a root again. So make sure that it's right next to the server. We're looking for DB. And then inside of it, let's create our connect.js function, meaning file, but the function is going to be over there. And then inside of it, we want to start by getting the mongoose. So let's go with mongoose. So import mongoose, and that is coming from the mongoose package. Mongoose here, and looks like I forgot to add from. And let's set up the function that is going to be looking for the URL. So that is going to be our connection string. So let's go here, const, and then connect DB. And I'll probably mention this 20,000 times, but Mongoose connect method returns a promise. And therefore, in a server, we'll set up a sync await. So this function will be looking for that connection string. And then from this function, what do we want to do? We want to go with a return and mongoose. So that's our import. And then we want to go with connect method. And if you're using Mongoose 6, then you don't need to add anymore the deprecation warnings. So my assumption is that you used Mongoose before, and prior to version 6, you needed to add a bunch of deprecation warnings. In this case, you don't have to do that anymore. You can simply just pass in the URL. Again, that is going to be our connection string. And then we want to go with export default, and then let's look for connect and DB. Let's save this, and now back in the server, here's what I want to do. I only want to spin up my server if the connection was successful. And the way we can do that, we can set up another function. So that's going to be our start function, which we invoke all the way somewhere down here. And let's just start by setting everything up. And yes, it will have to be a sync because, like I just said, connect DB, basically Mongoose connect, returns a promise. So let's go here with const start. Now that is equal to my sync. And then inside of it, we're going to go with try catch. That's an awesome start. And then let's go with await. Again, this is returning a promise. We want to go with connect DB. And let's take a look. And as you can see over here, we right away have the JS added. Now, this technically is not a middleware, so I do want to change this around a little bit where I want to move it above the middleware. And I don't think I'm going to give it a comment yet, maybe a little bit later, but I do want to make sure that this definitely is above the middleware, just like my setup that way. And then what is this function looking for? It's looking for the URL, correct? Now we don't have the connection string yet, so we will set this one up. And I know for sure that the name will be Mongo URL, at least in my case. So I'm going to go with process, since I know that I can access my environment variables that way, and then Mongo and then underscore URL. Again, the variable is not there yet. Then what we want to do is grab this app.listen, like so, and then where we have the catch. Well, let's just log the error for now. Let's say here log, and then the error, like so. And essentially, the server will only spin up if we're successful, if we can successfully connect to MongoDB. Here I want to remove the listen part, and then right after I have the function, I want to invoke it as well. Now, of course, the moment there should be big fat error. Why? Well, because we don't have the connection string. So let me try it out. Let me save it. And yep, notice here we have Mongo connect, must be a string, and actually we got back undefined. So what is our next step? Well, let's take a look at our README. So we have the start function. Now we want to get the connection string. Then we want to set up Mongo URL. And then we want to provide the credentials and the database name. Now where we can connect to the application, well, we need to go to our MongoDB Atlas account. We're looking for connect option. We're looking for specifically connect your application. I'm going to go with NodeJS 4.0 or later. And then we want to grab this sucker over here. So notice that is my user, John. Of course, the password is a dummy one at the moment. And we have our first database. If that's what you see, beautiful. Let's move back. A quick update. Since I recorded this video, Atlas has changed a few things about the setup. And even though changes are not big, it can lead to some annoying and hard to troubleshoot bugs. So let me cover them so we're all on the same page. First, when it comes to database access, we need to add built-in role manually. So let's say I want to add a new user. And in my case, I'm going to go with Peter. I'll go with some password here. That's the one that they generate. Notice how in here, we need to click on add built-in role. If you're not going to select this, and if you'll just add the user, you won't be able to connect to database from your local application, even with the correct password and username. So in here, we manually need to click on add built-in role and then select role, whether that is an admin, only read, but in my case, I'm going to go with read and write to any database. So make sure that it is selected here. Now, of course, if you created the user already before, then it's not a big deal. Then there's not much you need to change. But if you didn't, if you're creating a new user from the scratch, just make sure that you add that built-in role. Now, the second one is the connect. So let me go back to the database. And when we click on connect, and more specifically connect your application, now they don't provide that my first database like I have in the video. So at the moment, we get empty value. So we just need to manually add that database name, whatever that one is. That's also something to keep in mind. In the video, I have my first database. In here, you need to add that value between the / and the question mark. And lastly, this is really not a change, but I strongly suggest using the 000, meaning that you can access the database from anywhere, not the local IP. You can technically add your current address while you're developing, but once we push this up to production, if you use your local IP, it can lead to some unnecessary and hard to track bugs. And then in here, in .env, right after my port, I'm going to go with Mongo _URL. Let's pass in the connection string here. And then what I'm looking for here is the password. So the password that I have, which, if I'm being perfectly honest, I think I already forgot. And then the database name. Now, in my case, since I have quite a few applications from the Node Express course, let me take a look at my collections. I have the last one here, auth. So I think I'm going to start with 20 and then -Jobify. In your case, of course, you can set up whatever name you want. So where you have the first database over here, I'm going to go with 20 and then Jobify like so. But of course, name is really up to you. Then I'm going to change actually the password. I'll set it up to my correct password. And then once everything's in place, again, we want to restart the server because we're making changes here in the .env. So let me add the password and switch back to server.js. And let me try it one more time to spin up our server. Beautiful. I finally remembered my password. So now I'm back in the server.js. I will stop the server and let's run npm start. And let's see. If everything is correct, we should see server is listening on port 5000. And now we can move on to the next step.